Welcome to class, loves. Today I have the 6 rules of creative writing. Number 1, show, don't tell. Number 2, do not waste a page, a sentence, or a word. Number 3, reflect reality. Art not of its time need not be written. Number 4, style matters above all else. Number 5, avoid religion and politics at all costs, unless you'd like to make fun of them. And number 6, avoid drama. You're not writing Grey's Anatomy. If you follow these rules, you should be a successful writer.
You might be thinking that I'm going to sit here and tell you why all those rules are trash, or why all those rules are ones you need to follow. But here's what we got. Followers, breakers. These people, these very famous writers, are ones who follow the rules, and here's ones who tend to break them. Now, you'll notice this is not a list of great books and bad books. It's not even new books and old books. These are just different styles that people have taken, and some of them like to follow these, and some of them like to break them. So, let's get into it. I'm B.T. Friesen. I'm a novelist, a poet, and a teacher. I put those all together so that you can write like a good reader. Let's start with one of the most common rules, which is show, don't tell. All the light we cannot see is a rule follower here. This book by Anthony Doerr digs in deep, and it describes every sense and every moment, including from a narrator who is a young blind girl. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and it won the Pulitzer. Another one would be Toni Morrison's Beloved, a classic. This is one of the most painful books I've ever read because it tries to put you into the mind and the life of someone who's affected by slavery, and it tears you up.
Good God, girl. What kind of evil you got in there?
It ain't evil. Just sad. Come on. Step on through.
Rule breaker in the show don't tell might be someone like Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. This book spans, I think, 4 generations, and so to tell the story of 4 generations, he moves pretty darn quick. Another one from a different canon might be classic Arabic storytelling, the Hakawati style, which is sort of like this oral storytelling in which it's focused much more on the person, the lesson, the plot, the characters, and much less on describing every single sense, especially because it is in a lot of oral storytelling. The place is usually the place people are familiar with, so what's the point of describing every single thing in detail? Our second rule is we shouldn't waste a word, we shouldn't waste a sentence, and certainly not a page. Someone who made that famous, F. Scott Fitzgerald, specifically The Great Gatsby. He spent ages editing this book, not to add things to it, but to take things away from it so it could be as thin as possible and get straight to the point. A more modern example might be someone like Louise Erdrich. Her early novel, The Beat Queen, goes straight from one character and one plot point to the next. Every chapter is pretty short and is like, this is the point of the chapter, move on. Another 2 famous books you've certainly heard of. One is Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, or anything by Tolstoy. There's a reason War and Peace is like this big. But in Anna Karenina, for instance, he is like, you know what I want to talk about? I want to talk about Russian agriculture and how we could reform it. And so he puts one of his characters who's just obsessed with agriculture and is like, let's reform it and let's talk about it for a good chunk of the book. Another one might be one that you've almost certainly read because English teachers just love to teach this, and they've loved to teach it for like the last 60 years, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. If I asked you, do you remember the plot of To Kill a Mockingbird? You'd probably say something about, oh yeah, it's about this lawyer who's a good guy who's defending an innocent man, and the innocent man is this black guy who's accused of raping a white woman, and you'd be right, but that's only the last third of the book. Do you remember what the first half is about? The first 2/3 is about? It's just like Harper Lee's like, let's talk about Macomb, Alabama, and my neighbor, and this other person, and like our culture and our traditions, and that's pretty much what most of the book is about.
Won the Beautiful Child contest and won $5 on it. She gave the money to me and I went to the picture show 20 times with her. Our mama's dead, but we get her daddy.
The next rule, reflect reality. There's a very famous quote in writers' circles that says something like, art that does not comment on or reflect the times it is in is pointless. This entire stack, and most of the stack would probably agree with that. Whether it's History and Midnight's Children, or it's The Great American Dream and Fitzgerald, or Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I chose this one because this one is super famous these days. It's actually set in 2025, even though she wrote it in the 90s, and it's a dystopian sci-fi book, but she goes way out of her way to make things super realistic and make you feel it, which is why this book gave me nightmares, and I would recommend it, but it is scary. You already can probably see what's coming next. Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling broke this rule. This has been one of the most praised and certainly one of the most sold books of the last 30 years. And it's not like she wrote it to express what human condition is in the late 20th and early 21st century. She wrote it so we can escape reality, and people love it. This also applies to pretty much any superhero movie, most blockbusters, most things that... There's the bell. I got not too much time before my students come in, so let's get moving. All right, next one. Style matters above all else. Style is what separates the kings and the queens from the lay people who write. And when you think of style, you have to think of James Joyce, Ulysses, right? This whole book is stream of consciousness. He was one of the stream of consciousness pioneers, along with people like Faulkner and Woolf. And this has been one of the most studied, most praised, and certainly most written about by academics in the last 100 years. Another more recent one is, I will say this name correctly, I'll try. Laszlo Krasznahorkai, Hungarian dude who won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction last year in 2025. His book, Melancholy of Resistance, I'm in the middle of reading, and he is definitely influenced by those gents and ladies of the modern period who love style. Another very praised figure who is on Not About That is Barbara Kingsolver. Here's her book, Flight Behavior. Her more famous books would be The Poisonwood Bible or Demon Copperhead. She is all about telling that story, and she's not as much about experimenting with style. That's just not the point. And this brings us to one of the last ones, is don't get into religion and politics, or if you do, you have to make fun of it. I'm gonna actually start backwards. Barbara Kingsolver broke this rule. This whole book is about climate change. Demon Copperhead is about the opioid crisis in the Appalachian regions. Other famous ones, great movie that I saw recently, Judas and the Black Messiah, which is all about the Black Panthers and FBI plants. It's an amazing movie, famous, won awards, and it's super political.
I need everybody to repeat after me. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary.
Another one that gets into that, the brothers Karamazov. Similar to Tolstoy, this old Russian man was like, you know what I want to talk about? Not this story. I want to talk about Russian monastic theology. So he included a monk in here who just yaps about mysticism and stuff. I like it, if you like it. Other people, though, who follow this rule, that don't get into religion or politics, or if you do, you got to make fun of it or something like that. Most of these people, but also classics, theater of the absurd, like Tom Stoppard, or my favorite example is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. God is like this puppet in the sky.
What are you doing now? I'm averting my eyes, O Lord. Well, don't.
It talks about political theory as like these peasants who are scooping mud, who are trying to be anarcho-syndicalists.
What? I told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
It mocks everything, right? But that's just not the case in a lot of contemporary work. Actually, this gets into my last point. The Brothers Karamazov was one of those that I read after I was finished with my bachelor's degree, and it made me start to question these rules, because this is full of absurdism, it's full of politics, it's so the opposite of something like Gatsby that it really made me start to question things. And it has so much drama, which is one of our last rules: avoid drama. Don't write about the wedding, write about the stuff around it. Like in Julia Alvarez's The Time of the Butterflies, she uses multiple narrators to sort of get around drama rather than go straight into it. And I guess one of the most famous ones is Hemingway. The Old Man and the Sea is all about dude who's fishing, just trying to catch a fish. That's the story. It feels the magic of this book, because it's like 100 pages, and it feels like it's 400 pages, because the man just fishes forever. People who break that, I think, of course, Brothers Karamazov, or most television today, or a lot of famous books like Neil Gaiman's American Gods, right? This is packed full of drama, and it still wins awards. And if you look at television today, it's not super dry. Even stuff that is super celebrated gets talked about, gets discussed, gets studied in universities. I think of Squid Game, for instance. There's so much drama and grit and darkness, but there's also hope and light.
But Squid Game doesn't use all of this extreme drama and crazy characters and over-the-top violence and everything just to be like a flashy entertainment. It does it to pull people in and tell a story that is really a profound commentary on inequality and how poverty pits people against each other.
Things are changing, and it makes me think of something that happened around 2,000 years ago, Greek tragedy. Greek tragedy has been studied ever since it was written. And Greek tragedy had a couple rules that Aristotle wrote about. A couple things. It should have a oneness of time, place, and action. It usually has something to do with ideal beauty, and religious inspiration is often involved. The purpose was catharsis, which is to purge the soul and like cleanse the reader. The lead is almost always a man who is complex and has just committed a hamartia, which is like a fatal mistake or fatal choice that kind of screws him over. For example, Oedipus Rex, which is one of the most famous and enduring ones because it's like the most fucked up, where Oedipus turns out accidentally kills his dad in a fight and then goes and marries his mom, and then he finds this out at the beginning of the play. You don't see stuff like that so much anymore. It's not that we don't like complex characters anymore, but often today we see heroes who might be flawed, but they're generally good guys who are fighting against some external evil, something that they have to defeat. Same thing with like oneness of time, place, and action, inspiration of what it's supposed to be out, catharsis. All these things happen sometimes still. It's not that we've thrown them away completely, but they're no longer rules. And I think about what I learned in my creative writing program. I learned about thinking about these rules, these greats, and these rule breakers who were often just sort of talked about less because they didn't fit the mold. And I think about how a lot of my professors, who I learned a lot from, were still people who were sort of raised on this canon. And they were raised on modernism and postmodernism, and to them that sort of formed a hierarchy of good to bad that they taught from. And so what I want to do with this video series, as I continue teaching about spectrum literary analysis, is to sort of break that, to say something like show, don't tell isn't a rule, it's a spectrum, right? Someone like this don't exist on a good to bad, but they exist on a spectrum. And I hope that you will follow me in this journey as we teach about it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Forgot to mention, if you want to be taken seriously as a writer, and if you want to have your main character taken seriously, you need to be a habitual smoker. Unfortunately, this is just a piece of wallpaper. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. Please feel free to share, like, subscribe to this video. And as always, none of this was made with AI, because the human struggle for art is worth the struggle. See you guys next time.